And we didn't mention it to anybody. I didn't mention it myself to anyone until after Mr. Presley had died, and then I put it in my book.
49 years of absolute silence end today. An 82-year-old man sits by a single window, his hands trembling against a faded blanket. Time is running out. Charlie Hodge was the shadow man who kept Elvis Presley's darkest secrets safe. While others sold their stories to the highest bidder, Charlie chose exile. Now, his breath comes in shallow rasps. He leans toward a microphone, his voice barely a whisper. The official history of Graceland is a lie. The final words the king ever spoke were not a farewell. They were a terrifying warning that forced Charlie into hiding for decades. Listen closely. The truth is finally coming out, and it will change everything you think you know. The silence in the room.
Jim saw the explosion. I didn't know it.
I had lunch.
Because there was this launch right over here.
I had lunch. I was 30. I was buried in a beaver.
The mahogany table holds a single cassette recorder. Charlie Hodge stares at the red recording light while his fingers tap against the plastic casing. That small mechanical click breaks a silence that outlived the 20th century. He does not start with the music or the fame. He starts with the sound of a key turning in a lock inside the Graceland kitchen at 4 in the morning. The year was 1977, and the heavy Memphis heat felt like a wet wool blanket over the estate. Elvis sat at the table with a glass of ice water, wearing a faded blue bathrobe with frayed cuffs. His eyes were bloodshot and fixed on the linoleum floor. Charlie stood by the sink, rinsing a coffee pot while the rest of the mansion slept. The silence inside the house felt dangerous. Elvis suddenly dropped a heavy brass key onto the table, creating a sharp, metallic clang that made Charlie freeze. "If anything happens tomorrow, you go to the attic," Elvis said in a thick, urgent whisper. "Don't look for the lawyers and don't call the office. You take the blue ledger hidden under the floorboards." Charlie left the water running in the sink because he had never seen this specific look of panic before. He had been with Elvis since their army days in Germany, sharing stages, dressing rooms, and the wildest eras of Hollywood. Charlie was the man who handed Elvis his guitar on stage and sang harmony when the king's voice cracked. He knew every mood, every tantrum, and every joke. But this was pure, unfiltered paranoia. What was inside that blue ledger? The public thought they knew everything about the Presley estate. They knew about the contracts and the fleet of Cadillacs, but they did not know about the private debts. They did not know about the names written in the margins of Elvis's personal Bible. Charlie looked from the brass key to the singer's face. Elvis looked completely exhausted, but his grip on Charlie's wrist was tight and his skin felt clammy. "They think I'm asleep, but I've been reading the financial ledgers," Elvis whispered. He looked up toward the ceiling while speaking. "The numbers don't match, Charlie. The tours are making millions, but the bank accounts are draining completely. Someone is signing my name to legal papers I've never seen." This was the first major fracture in the wall of absolute loyalty. For decades, the public believed Elvis was simply a victim of his own poor health, pills, and diet. Charlie knew a different truth that involved deliberate financial pressure. Elvis discovered a massive fraud just weeks before his scheduled August tour. He was trapped in a financial vice grip, unable to cancel the shows because he desperately needed the cash to cover unexplained debts. Charlie did not ask questions that night because you survived the Memphis Mafia by listening, not by interrogating. He picked up the brass key and slipped it into his pocket, where it stayed through the funeral. It stayed in his pocket when the executors moved into the house. It stayed with him when he finally left Graceland for good, carrying nothing but a suitcase and a guitar. The old man pauses his narration to reach for a glass of water on the table. His hand shakes so badly the water spills over the brim. The spilled water dampens the wool blanket on his lap. He looks out the window at the gray sky, reflecting on his 82 years of life. The people he protected are all gone now. The managers, the bodyguards, and the lawyers are buried in Tennessee soil, leaving no one left to threaten his small pension. Why did he wait 49 years to speak about that night? The answer is a matter of pure survival. In the months following August 1977, 3 separate men tried to buy that brass key from Charlie. One offered $50,000 in cash, while another brought a contract from a New York publisher. The third man did not bring money, but met Charlie in a diner off Highway 61 to deliver a warning. "Some secrets belong to the estate now," the man told Charlie while eating a plate of eggs without looking up. If you try to sell what you took from the attic, you won't live long enough to spend the money. Charlie left the diner and drove straight to Alabama without writing a book or doing television specials. He took a job playing guitar in small-town lounges. The lounge gigs earned just enough to pay for a trailer park rental. He became a ghost in his own life, causing fans and historians to stop calling his phone. He achieved exactly what he wanted, which was absolute obscurity. But obscurity has an expiration date when an old man's memory becomes too heavy to carry into a grave. Charlie sets the water glass down with a heavy thud. He looks directly into the lens of the video camera. His blue eyes are clouded with cataracts, but his focus is entirely sharp. The tone drops any warmth and becomes clinical, detailing the corporate system inside Graceland. The mansion was a corporate headquarters run by fear under the control of Colonel Tom Parker. Every piece of mail, fan letter, and medical prescription went through the main office first. Elvis was completely isolated from his own reality, living in a world where every piece of information was filtered. Except for Charlie, who lived in the room adjacent to the main suite and saw the unfiltered moments. He saw the nights when Elvis could not sleep because he heard footsteps on the roof. He saw the days when the singer refused to eat because he believed the kitchen staff was compromised. The narrative returns to the kitchen floor at 4:30 in the morning when the clock chimed. Elvis stood up from the table, his robe dragging on the floor as he walked toward the stairs. "Don't trust the afternoon shift," Elvis said, turning his head slightly in the dim light of the stove bulb. That was the last tactical instruction he spoke regarding the people hired to protect him. Within 12 hours, the afternoon shift arrived at the gates. Within 14 hours, the sirens were screaming down Elvis Presley Boulevard, leaving Charlie alone with a key that could destroy a legacy. Echoes of the Graceland attic.
And he came up to me and said, "Charlie," said, "do you remember that theme on the 2001 Space Odyssey?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That'd be a great opening."
The origin of this unbreakable bond dates back to 1958 in Fort Hood, Texas. Charlie stood in a supply line when a young truck driver from Memphis stepped in behind him. Elvis Presley was already an international phenomenon, but the army stripped away the velvet capes and the screaming fans. The two men slept in the same muddy barracks and cleaned the same standard-issue rifles. They found a shared language in gospel music, singing harmonies in the back of transport trucks during late-night maneuvers. Charlie became the anchor that kept the superstar tethered to the real world during a time of immense grief. When Elvis lost his mother that summer, the world watched a public breakdown through flashing camera lenses. Charlie was the only person allowed inside the private room where the young soldier wept without restraint. He did not offer empty platitudes or corporate sympathy to the grieving star. He simply sat on an upturned footlocker and guarded the door from reporters. That silent vigil established a deep trust that no manager or record executive could ever buy or replicate. Elvis realized that Charlie did not want a piece of his fame or a share of his publishing rights. After their military discharge, the machinery of Hollywood attempted to separate the two friends completely. Film producers viewed the old army buddies as a distraction from the polished image they wanted to sell. Colonel Tom Parker tried to banish Charlie from the movie sets, offering him a cash settlement to return to Alabama. Elvis discovered the plan and threw a heavy brass lamp through a dressing room mirror in pure rage. He threatened to walk away from a 3-picture deal if his friend was forced out of his circle. The studio bosses quickly backed down, and Charlie was given a permanent room inside the changing mansion. The relationship evolved into a highly specialized role that the public never truly understood on stage. If you watch old concert footage from the 70s, you see Charlie crouching near the drum riser. He is the man wearing a matching jumpsuit, holding a stack of acoustic guitars and a dozen silk scarves. The audiences thought he was just a glorified stagehand or a member of the comedy troupe. In reality, he was monitoring the singer's physical condition second by second under the blinding spotlight. He kept a small bottle of liquid ammonia hidden inside his sleeve to revive the king between songs. There were nights in Las Vegas when the stage curtains hid a terrifying medical crisis from the audience. Elvis would finish a high-energy number, turn his back to the crowd, and collapse against the drum riser. Charlie would catch him by the shoulders, hold the ammonia under his nose, and whisper the next lyrics. The singer would blink away the darkness, straighten his spine, and turn back to face the roaring crowd. The fans saw a triumphant rock god conquering the stage with effortless grace and power. They never saw the Shadow Man holding him upright by the belt loops of his costume. This absolute proximity to the star meant that Charlie became the primary repository for the house secrets. When the mansion doors closed at midnight, the glamorous entourage scattered to the local bars and nightclubs. Charlie remained in the upstairs hallway, listening to the pacing footsteps inside the master bedroom suite. He knew the specific rhythm of Elvis's insomnia, which often involved hours of reading ancient philosophical texts. The singer would occasionally open his door at 3 in the morning and point a finger at Charlie. They would spend the pre-dawn hours moving old trunks inside the dusty, unlit attic space. The attic was the one area of Graceland that Colonel Parker never inspected during his visits. It was filled with standard family debris, old stage props, and boxes of unreleased home recordings. But behind a stack of broken television sets laid a loose wooden plank near the brick chimney. Elvis called it his insurance policy against the people who managed his global empire. He began hiding private diaries and legal documents beneath that floorboard as early as 1973. He realized that his phone lines were being tapped by corporate lawyers tracking his expenditures. The whole point of this narrative centers on a strange meeting that occurred in May of 1976. Elvis called Charlie into the attic during a severe thunderstorm that knocked out the mansion's electricity. The two men worked by the flickering light of a single kerosene lantern over the floorboards. Elvis pulled out a legal document detailing a secret partnership with a European distribution company. The signatures at the bottom of the page belonged to his father and his manager, but not to him. Someone had authorized a massive loan using the Graceland estate as collateral. "They are preparing for life without me, Charlie," Elvis whispered while the thunder rattled the attic windows. He took a pocket knife and sliced his thumb, pressing a bloody fingerprint onto the corner of the document. He made Charlie do the exact same thing on the adjacent page before replacing the floorboard. "If they try to say I went crazy at the end, you show them this blood. You tell them I knew exactly what they were doing to my life." The old man stops the recording tape for a brief moment to catch his breath. The memory of that attic meeting still brings a sharp, defensive edge to his fading voice. He explains that the document proved Elvis was completely lucid regarding his financial ruin. The media narrative always painted the singer as a helpless drug addict who lost his mind. Charlie insists that the paranoia was completely justified because the betrayal came from inside his own family. The people tasked with saving his wealth were actively dismantling it behind his back. The pressure intensified as the summer of 1977 approached with a heavy touring schedule. Elvis wanted to cancel the August shows to file a federal lawsuit against his management team. He instructed Charlie to gather all the files from the attic floorboard before the tour bus arrived. But the machinery of fame was already moving too fast for a single man to halt. The ticket sales were finalized, the arenas were booked, and the musicians were rehearsing in Memphis hotels. The Shadow Man watched his friend disintegrate under the weight of an impending corporate trap, shattering the myth of August. The official police report contains a specific timeline for the afternoon of August 16th. It states that the ambulance arrived at the mansion gates at 2:33. It claims the singer was found unresponsive on the bathroom floor by his fiancée. This narrative was printed in newspapers across the globe and became historical fact. Charlie Hodge explicitly denies this version of events whenever he revisits the records. He spent that entire morning sitting on the staircase just 12 steps below the master bedroom. The house was not peaceful, and it was certainly not quiet before the sirens started screaming. The true chaos began at 10 in the morning when the kitchen phone rang. A prominent record executive called from New York to discuss the upcoming tour logistics. He demanded to speak directly with Elvis regarding an unverified insurance document for the plane. Charlie intercepted the call at the main desk because the singer was sleeping. The executive did not sound professional or calm during the brief 5-minute conversation. He told Charlie that if the singer failed to board the plane, the company would seize the house. "Tell your boss that his signature is already on the default papers," the executive said. The line clicked shut before Charlie could even formulate a coherent response to the threat. Charlie walked up the stairs to check on his friend after hearing that. He found the master bedroom door completely unlocked, which was highly unusual for that room. Elvis was standing by the window, staring through the heavy velvet drapes at the gates. He was fully dressed in his stage clothes despite the early morning hour. The singer held a black leather briefcase tight against his chest with both hands. It was the specific briefcase he used to store his most personal legal files. Charlie noticed that the brass locks on the case were severely bent out of shape. Someone had attempted to force the briefcase open with a tool while Elvis slept. The singer's breathing was shallow, and his face was completely drained of color. He looked at Charlie with an expression of absolute betrayal that surpassed his usual paranoia. "They were in the room while I was resting, Charlie," Elvis said. His voice was cracked and lacked its usual deep, resonant power. "They didn't look for the pills this time because they wanted the ledger. I caught them by the closet, but they ran down the back stairs." Charlie immediately asked for names, but the singer simply shook his head in silence. The internal security team for the Memphis Mafia was completely compromised by corporate interests. This brings us to the details regarding the missing briefcase from that afternoon. When the medical personnel finally entered the room at 2:40, the briefcase was gone. The bathroom floor was covered in medical debris, discarded oxygen masks, and towels, but the black leather case with the bent brass locks had completely vanished. Charlie searched the bedroom closet and the underbed storage while the paramedics worked. Someone had removed the evidence of the financial fraud before the first police officer arrived. The old man leans forward, his voice dropping to an intense, raspy whisper. He claims he saw a member of the management team walking down the driveway. The man carried a heavy canvas gym bag toward a waiting sedan. The car did not belong to anyone on the estate staff or the family. It carried out-of-state license plates and left the property through the service exit. The police never searched that vehicle because they treated the scene as an accidental overdose. They completely ignored the financial warfare happening inside the house. The public narrative was deliberately shaped to protect the corporate entity of Elvis Presley Enterprises. A dead rock star who died of excess was a tragic, marketable myth. A living rock star who exposed international financial fraud in a federal court was dangerous. The record companies stood to lose millions if the contracts were declared null. Charlie realized the scope of the conspiracy while standing in the crowded hallway. He felt the brass key in his pocket pressed tightly against his thigh. The afternoon shift of bodyguards arrived at the mansion gates precisely at noon. Charlie remembered the warning from the kitchen meeting and refused to leave his post. He stood by the top banister, watching the new guards move through the downstairs rooms. They did not look like the regular Memphis boys who handled the crowds. They were quiet, professional men wearing dark suits despite the intense humidity. They spent an hour inspecting the telephone lines in the office. The tension peaked at 1:45 when a loud argument erupted downstairs. Vernon Presley was shouting at a lawyer near the front door about a contract. The lawyer insisted that the tour could not be delayed for any reason. Charlie heard the bedroom door click shut behind him during the screaming match. He turned around and saw the doorknob slowly turning from the inside. It was the last time the lock engaged before the tragedy occurred. The main point still goes back to when we look at the immediate actions of the staff. The official reports claim everyone was paralyzed by grief when the body was found. Charlie claims that 3 specific individuals immediately ran toward the office files instead. They began feeding stacks of internal memos into a portable paper shredder. The machine ran continuously for 40 minutes while the ambulance raced toward Baptist Memorial. They were destroying the financial trail before the investigators could secure the mansion. Charlie did not join the scramble for the paperwork or the shouting match. He walked up to the attic while the downstairs area descended into total madness. The house was vibrating with the sound of crying family members and ringing phones. He knelt by the brick chimney and pulled up the loose wooden plank. The blue ledger that Elvis mentioned was still sitting inside the dark cavity. He grabbed the book, tucked it inside his shirt, and walked down. The price of absolute loyalty. The blue ledger remained hidden beneath Charlie's shirt, while the ambulance sped away from the mansion gates. The city of Memphis descended into a state of public mourning. But inside the estate, a corporate liquidation was already beginning. Lawyers and executors arrived in black town cars before the evening sun set over the property. They did not comfort the family or offer condolences to the grieving staff members in the kitchen. They immediately placed padlocks on the office doors and began inventorying every asset inside the house. Charlie stood on the back porch, watching the security teams secure the perimeter with new guards. The estate executors called Charlie into the formal dining room at midnight for a private meeting. 3 men sat across from him at the long mahogany table, surrounded by stacks of legal releases. They informed him that his employment with the Presley estate was terminated effective immediately. They offered him a severance package consisting of $5,000 and a train ticket back to Alabama. The catch was a 20-page non-disclosure agreement resting under the glare of the chandelier. The document stated that any public mention of Elvis's final days would result in immediate financial ruin. Charlie looked at the pen they placed in his hand, feeling the weight of the blue ledger tucked safely inside his car trunk. He knew that signing the paper would guarantee a quiet, comfortable life free from harassment. Refusing to sign meant becoming an immediate target for an organization desperate to protect its multi-million-dollar asset. He slowly set the pen down on the table, stood up from his chair, and walked out of the room without saying a single word. He packed his single suitcase, grabbed his acoustic guitar, and left Graceland through the kitchen doors. The retaliation from the management team began within 48 hours of his quiet departure. Charlie drove his old sedan to a motel in Mississippi, hoping to find a few days of uninterrupted rest. He returned from a local diner to find his room completely ransacked by unknown individuals. His suitcase was ripped open, the lining of his coat was shredded, and his guitar case was smashed. The thieves did not touch the wallet on the nightstand or the television on the dresser. They were looking for the blue ledger, completely unaware it was buried beneath a spare tire in his trunk. He realized then that he could never return to his old life in the music industry. The major record labels in Nashville and New York received a memo warning them against hiring Charlie for session work. He was effectively blacklisted from the very world he spent 20 years helping to build, alongside the king. The media painted him as a discarded hanger on who was simply bitter about being left out of the will. He chose not to fight the narrative in the newspapers, knowing that public defense would draw closer inspection to his daily whereabouts. Charlie moved into a small trailer park outside Birmingham, under an assumed name to survive. He took a job washing dishes at a 24-hour truck stop, working the graveyard shift to avoid recognition. Fans occasionally walked into the diner wearing Elvis t-shirts, completely unaware that the man scraping their plates used to share stages with their idol. The contrast was stark, but Charlie felt a strange sense of relief in the obscurity. He was no longer monitoring a superstar's physical collapse under the blinding lights of Las Vegas showrooms. The psychological toll of carrying another man's ghost began to manifest in physical ailments during the 90s. Charlie suffered from chronic insomnia, waking up at 4 in the morning, thinking he heard footsteps in his hallway. He constantly checked the locks on his trailer doors, convinced that the estate lawyers were still tracking his movements. He kept the blue ledger inside an old metal ammunition box, moving it to a new hiding spot every 6 months. The secret was a protective shield, but it also functioned as a permanent isolation chamber. Other members of the Memphis Mafia began publishing lucrative Tell, all books filled with sensationalized gossip about the singer's addictions. They appeared on television talk shows, receiving massive checks to detail the darkest moments of the superstar's private life. Publishers tracked Charlie down in Alabama, offering him a 6-figure advance to write his own version of the story. One agent brought a suitcase containing $50,000 in cash to his trailer door as a deposit. Charlie looked at the money, thought about the bloody fingerprint in the attic, and closed the door. His refusal to sell out puzzled the public, but it kept him alive during a dangerous era of corporate restructuring. The ownership of Elvis Presley Enterprises shifted through various corporate hands, each entity more aggressive than the last. They actively sued anyone attempting to use the singer's likeness or release unapproved audio recordings. Charlie knew that the contents of the Blue Ledger would dismantle their entire legal framework regarding the intellectual property. He chose to hold the information back until the original players were no longer around to suppress it. Now, at 82 years old, the final countdown has begun inside this quiet room. The original lawyers are gone, the managers are dead, and Charlie is the last living witness to the kitchen meeting. He watches the cassette tape spin, knowing that his silence is no longer a virtue. It has become a historical disservice to a friend who trusted him with the truth. He leans closer to the microphone, ready to transition from the years of exile to the final revelation. Anatomy of a Final Whisper. The tape recorder continues to spin on the mahogany table as Charlie Hodge prepares to break his final vow. He pulls the old metal ammunition box onto his lap and flips the heavy iron latches with a loud click. Inside sits the blue ledger, its edges frayed and darkened by 50 years of humidity. The page containing the bloody fingerprint lies open under the lamplight, a stark contrast to the sterile myths surrounding the king's death. Charlie traces the faint crimson mark with a trembling index finger, his voice dropping to a low, gravelly register. We must return to the exact moment Elvis turned his back on the kitchen stove, light at 4:30 in the morning. The singer did not simply walk away after warning Charlie about the afternoon security shift. He reached out and grabbed the lapels of Charlie's denim jacket, pulling his friend close until their foreheads almost touched. The smell of cheap cologne and medicinal throat spray was suffocatingly strong in the tight space. Elvis's chest heaved with a ragged breath that sounded like dry paper tearing in the wind. "They think they're going to leave me with nothing, Charlie," Elvis whispered into his ear. "They told me the plane won't take off tomorrow unless I sign the new management extension over to the shell company. If I go upstairs and don't come back down, you tell the federal prosecutor in Nashville to look at the offshore routing numbers." Those were the literal final words the king ever spoke to his most trusted companion. It was not a poetic reflection on a legendary career or a soft farewell to a loyal audience. It was a cold, desperate legal directive from a man who knew he was running out of time. Elvis went up the stairs to his master suite to find the necessary files, not to sleep or read. The public was told he died of a sudden, unpredictable heart ailment while resting before the big tour. Charlie insists the physical collapse was the direct result of a final, violent confrontation over the contents of that briefcase. Another thing to know about the New York executive is when Charlie reads the specific names from the ledger pages. The documents show that over $12 million had been moved through a bank in the Cayman Islands. The authorizations carried Elvis's signature, but the handwriting style was completely inconsistent with his medical records from that week. Someone was actively forging his consent on international banking transfers while he was performing on stage in Las Vegas. The singer had discovered the paper trail just 48 hours prior to his death. Charlie explains that the federal prosecutor in Nashville was actually waiting for a call from Elvis on August 17th. A grand jury investigation had been secretly approved to look into the financial practices of the management team. The singer's death effectively killed the legal case before a single subpoena could be issued to the banks. The record labels immediately stepped in to classify all financial files as private estate property, sealing them from public view. Charlie was left holding the only duplicate copy of the evidence in existence. The narrative suspense reaches its peak as Charlie explains why he kept the offshore routing numbers hidden for decades. The individuals involved in the shell company did not disappear after the funeral in Memphis. They formed new entertainment corporations that continued to manage the singer's catalog and likeness for global distribution. If Charlie had presented the Blue Ledger in 1978, the legal system would have tied it up in endless appeals. He waited until the corporate statutes of limitations expired and the original perpetrators passed away. The old man closes the ledger with a heavy thud that echoes through the quiet room. The revelation is complete, and the historical record has been permanently altered by a first-hand witness. The myth of the helpless, fated idol is replaced by the reality of a desperate artist, fighting a losing battle against his own corporate handlers. Charlie looks out the window, his chest rising and falling in a steady, peaceful rhythm for the first time today. The burden of the secret has finally been transferred from his fading memory to the digital tape. The archive of an empty room. Charlie Hodge walked out of Baptist Memorial Hospital on August 16, 1977, into a wall of popping flashbulbs. He did not look at the lenses. He kept his head down, his fingers locked around a small leather shaving kit. It was the only item he brought out of that building. The reporters yelled questions from behind the metal barricades. They wanted to know what happened on the second floor. They wanted to know the final condition of the king. Charlie climbed into the back of a waiting sedan and closed the door. The silence inside that car was instant. It was a cold, absolute silence that would stretch across the next 4 decades of his life. How does a man survive 40 years when his entire world stops in a single afternoon? Most people think the entourage scrambled for the microphones immediately. Some did. Books were signed within months. Courtrooms filled up with former bodyguards and distant cousins. They traded private moments for cash payouts. Charlie moved his things into a small, quiet home, away from the gates of Graceland. He locked his acoustic guitar in its hard case. He kept the lid shut. For a long time, he did not even look at the stage suits hanging in his closet. Every time he closed his eyes, he was back in that moving ambulance, feeling the cold cloth in his hand. A major question remained among the inner circle during those first few years. Did Charlie actually hold back a piece of evidence from the official investigators? The local police department filed their reports. The medical examiners listed the official cause of death. Yet, the people who knew Elvis best noticed something strange about Charlie. He stopped speaking to the press entirely by 1980. When old friends asked him about the final moments upstairs, he changed the subject. He would talk about the army days in Germany. He would talk about the early rehearsals in Memphis. But the moment the conversation drifted toward that final August morning, his posture changed. He froze. The truth is, a second secret kept Charlie awake during those long Tennessee nights. It was not just the phrase Elvis whispered at the piano. It was the identity of the third person who entered the private quarters just hours before the end. The public never saw this name in the newspapers. The tabloids missed it completely. Charlie had promised to protect this person, just as he promised to protect Elvis. If that name leaked out in 1977, it would have shattered the family estate. It would have triggered lawsuits that could have wiped out the entire legacy. So, Charlie chose to carry the weight alone. Think about the sheer physical toll of that choice. By 1995, Charlie was living a quiet life, occasionally appearing at small fan conventions. People paid $20 for an autograph. They wanted to shake the hand that handed Elvis his guitars. They stood in line for hours, asking the same questions. Charlie smiled. He signed his name on the glossy photographs. He told the fans how much Elvis appreciated their love. But he never told them about the panic. He never mentioned the small mineral water bottle left on the piano. He kept the human being alive in his mind, while the world celebrated a cardboard cutout. That brings us back to the small recording studio. Charlie is 82 years old now. The snow-white hair catches the bright glare of the television lights. His breathing is loud in the small room. The microphone stands just inches from his face, picking up every tremble in his voice. The interviewer waits. The camera crew does not move. Charlie looks directly into the glass lens. He does not look like a man trying to cash in on a memory. He looks like a man who is simply tired of running out of breath. Why did he finally decide to speak after 44 years? The answer is simple. Charlie looked at his calendar and realized he was the last one left. The old crowd from Fort Hood was gone. The band members from the 1976 tour were fading away. The history books were becoming filled with rumors, lies, and exaggerated myths. The real Elvis, the terrified man who sat at the piano, wondering if his life mattered, was being completely erased by the legend. Charlie knew that if he did not speak now, the truth would go into the dirt with him. He wipes a single tear from his cheek with the back of his hand. The skin is thin, showing the blue veins beneath. He tells the interviewer about the final promise. He explains that the love affair was never truly one-sided. The fans gave everything they had, and Elvis gave until his body literally gave out. The last words were not a grand statement for history. They were the words of a tired boy from Mississippi who just wanted to know his friend would stay until the lights went down. Charlie signals the director to stop the tape. He grips the armrests of his chair and slowly stands up. His legs are stiff. He walks out of the studio beam into the dim hallways of the building. He does not look back at the cameras. For the first time in 44 years, his shoulders look light. The secret is out in the open. The vow is fulfilled. He can finally let his friend rest. Charlie Hodge kept his final promise to the king until his very last breath. He carried the heavy weight of those final words across 4 decades of absolute silence. Now, the full truth behind the legend is finally out in the open. What do you think about Elvis's heartbreaking final question to Charlie? Did the world love him back enough, or was it truly a one-sided affair? Tell us your thoughts in the comments section below. If you want to uncover more lost chapters of music history, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching.